everyone, this is Marco once again here on this journey of my OCS process with the Army National Guard. And as you guys saw from my previous video, I just got back from phase 1. My phase 1 was held in Alabama. So I got those videos for my previous ones. I did get a few questions. Obviously, I will probably, while I'm talking about it, I'll probably use some acronyms or certain terms that people might not understand. And one of them was, like the learning stuff that we had to memorize, things that we had to learn verbatim. And as I mentioned on my previous videos on the leadership one, there's certain things that are quote unquote have to be memorized. And then obviously someone had asked me about the OCSOP. And OCSOP is, they call it an officer candidate standard operation procedures. And the book, it was pretty much like this. This is the one for California. Alabama will give you one as well. And it pretty much gives you everything that you need to learn, all the procedures, all the learning material, everything that you're going to go through as an officer candidate. It's going to be in there. Do your best to try to memorize as much as you can. Obviously, you're not going to memorize the whole book. As you can see, it's literally a whole booklet describing everything that's in here, like your procedures, like I mentioned. It will have your uniforms, how your uniforms have to be, how your wall lockers have to be, all the equipment you will always have to have on you, the gear and items you will need when you're in uniform, or information such as the stuff that you need with your OCPs, or the stuff that you need with your PT stuff. It will tell you your dining facility procedures. It will explain when you're going to bed. So it's all in there. Read it. Obviously, you're not going to memorize everything. It's understandable. But once you're up there, you will start memorizing what to say, what to do, because it's pretty much muscle memory. So yeah, as I mentioned, this is your OCSOP. This is what you're going to be learning how to, everything you're going to be doing for an officer candidate. There's also another reason why I wanted to go accelerated, because yes, it's OCS, but the difference is for state of California and then going to Alabama, there are two different things that you have to memorize, such as the memorizations when it comes to your learning objectives, such as your training, your troop leading procedures. Let me check. I gotta double check on that. There'll be your troop leading procedures. They're pretty much the same on that. Your Army values are obviously going to be the same. What else? There was something on the troop leading procedures, to be exact, that was slightly different in Alabama than it is in California. I did bring it up to one of my sergeants who's from California. He says it wouldn't matter, but at the same time, just take into consideration the verbiage that you say it, because over here in California, such as the troop leading procedures, one of them was you're gonna issue the operation or op order. That's what's used in California. However, the one in the Alabama, it says you're gonna issue the complete order. So I try to memorize both of them to the best of my abilities, just in case if they ask me in Alabama. They did ask a few times in Alabama. That was one of the biggest things, was your troop leading procedures, or it's also known as your TOPs. That's one of the biggest ones that you will have to memorize. They weren't very big on it, because I know I've used it. I used it a few times where I did say operation or op order over there. They didn't mind, but like I said, it just depends on the cadre that you have. Some of them are going to be sticklers on it, some of them are not. Just be mindful about that, as well as be mindful as some cadre is not going to know what's on the OCSOP, which is your booklet. They're not going to know know it verbatim either, but there's certain things that they will know verbatim, and the ones that they know for sure verbatim, they will ask you. And if you mess up on it, obviously they're going to be a stickler on it. Other states may be different. I know I have people from Kansas, Illinois, Mississippi. So, you know, I don't know how theirs were, but they said that theirs were pretty similar, at least just like ours. So California is pretty similar to Alabama. Other states are probably going to be a little similar. I'm not sure how different. You will have your principles of patrolling, which are, you know, planning, recon, security, control, and common sense. Your general orders, they didn't really ask us over there, but they may ask you. Like I said, once again, it just depends on your cadre, because most of the time they expect you, especially if you're an officer candidate, they know you went through basic boot camp or BCT, so you should know your Army values, your general orders. You're only asked the big three, you know, your first three. So leadership defined, it was kind of worded a little differently over there, but for the most part they didn't really ask. But just try to remember that, you know, leadership is the process of influencing people by providing purpose, direction, and motivation while operating to accomplish a mission and improve the organization. So just try to memorize things to the best of your abilities. Like I said, if your state has it worded differently, at least try to memorize your state. That way you at least have something along the lines. Like I said, they're not off by a lot. It might be like one or two words that are changed, or, you know, words that may be taken out. I know one for OCS, honor code for California. Over here is: an officer candidate will not lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those who do. In Alabama, they took out the "or," and then that was it. So it was an officer candidate will not lie, cheat, steal, or tolerate those who do. So it was just, you know, a few words that were, you know, changed or, you know, removed. You will get your 5-paragraph op order, which is, you know, your situation, mission, execution, sustainment, and command and signal. The best way to memorize that one is they use the acronym of what was it? Sergeant Major enjoys sugar cookies. So that's always a good one to memorize it with. That's the way I memorized mine, and obviously now it's, you know, ingrained in my head. So I can memorize that one. You will have a salute report. However, we weren't quizzed on that one. You got characters of the offense. That one, I don't recall that being on my Alabama OCSOP. They didn't ask about it either, so I wouldn't be too concerned about certain things. But like I said, just memorize it, because like I always say, my process is different than yours. Your process is going to be different than others. Your cadre is definitely going to be different, so just be mindful about that. Cadre is going to want something different every time. Terrain analysis. Over there in Alabama, they use a different word instead of terrain analysis. I forgot what it was though. I do have the OCSOP for the Alabama, but I left that one at home, and that one's all torn up for the most part. So that one I really don't utilize anymore, especially because I'm not in Alabama anymore as well. Your MET-TC, another one. It was pretty similar to California. Alabama just had a little bit more to add on to it, such as for the E, it's not just enemy, it was enemy and equipment. So just like I said, remember that. Remember your soldier's creed. They had to say it a couple times, not a lot, but they had to say it a couple times that I'm aware of. They didn't have us do it individually, at least in my platoon, but when we were doing it all at, you know, in unison, be mindful the cadre's walking around listening, and if you don't know it, obviously they're going to catch on to it, and they're going to stand right next to you. And if you don't know it, guess what, they might, you know, give you a memorandum on it or memo on it. You might have to start learning it, because they might call you out on it to know it. If not, then you're going to have your platoon possibly in the front leaning rest position until you start learning it line by line. So just be mindful about that. Soldier's Creed is obviously something you should have learned in basic as well. The war fighting functions, same thing. It was on the Alabama OCS. However, they really didn't quizzes on it. So just be mindful about certain things. Every state's going to be different. It might be worded differently also. They'll give you a list. Alabama has a list also, depending on, can't even say Alabama, sorry, but depending on where you're going to do your OCS, they will send you a list of what you will need for those 2 weeks or those 8 weeks that you will be there. Same thing when it comes to your equipment. Once you get there, they're going to want certain things labeled. That includes like your camel bag, your 1-quart containers, your flick/tab, your salt pack, your rucksack. So they're going to want certain ways that they want to label. Over here in California, they wanted it labeled differently than Alabama for the most part. But this is what I mean. Sometimes it's going to be different. I got lucky for at least my platoon, because when I was in Alabama, for the most part, I didn't really change anything except for my shower shoes. I had to put white tape instead of the green tape that California uses, but it was the same initials and your last 4 of your social. So that was one of the things. The only thing I did, of course, for me to make it easier, is I just put the white tape over the green tape that I had for California. So now, because obviously I knew California already denied me to stay for the 8 weeks, so all I did was put white tape over it. And when I got back, obviously I just took off the white tape, and guess what? My green tape is still there with the same label that I had for Phase 0 or pre-OCS in California, so I don't have to worry about that. Same thing with my camel bag. We didn't utilize it over there, but I left my label on it for California, so I don't have to change that. Same thing with my caviar, your ACH or your helmet. Over there was different. We had to put our last name, but we had to put our platoon. Our company, which was Charlie Company. We had to put our platoon, which I was second, and we had to put our squad, which I was 4. So mine was C-2-4. But all I did, once again, it's a smart thing to do. All I did was I grabbed another piece of tape, put it over the one that I had for California, and now when I got back here, I just slowly removed it because it was a bigger piece than my shower shoes. I just slowly removed it until it came off, and then I got the same exact label from front and back that I utilized for pre-OCS and Phase 0 over here. So that's one less thing I have to worry about. Your salt pack, same thing. I didn't have to change anything. For your shovel or your e-tool, what they call, same thing. I didn't really change anything. I think they wanted us to change, but it was never cleared for at least our platoon, so I never changed anything. So it was a benefit for me because I didn't have to worry about it. I just left the same labeling that I had from California over there. Once again, it might be different. I know I had a few friends that they actually had to remove it because they had to put some type of different labeling on there, and of course I guess their cadre was really on them for it. My cadre was somewhat on it, but you know, they saw the label. I don't know if they didn't notice it or if they just didn't mind the way my label was, but obviously I was able to keep my label on there. Once again, it just depends on your cadre. It depends on the time that you're there, but utilize those smart tools like I kind of did. If you're going to be traditional, you're going back to your state and it's different, and you have to put something over it, you know, don't remove the tape, because now, one, you might end up losing that tape, or the sticky might not be as sticky no more. So when you go back to your state, you're gonna have to most likely remove it, or it's possibly gonna just get removed because it's peeling off easily. So just be mindful about that. If you can, be smart, grab another tape, and if possible, put that tape over it, and you'll be fine. That way you slowly remove it, and when it comes off, you're careful with making sure that your original or your initial one for your state is still on there, and you don't have to worry about redoing it again when you get back home. That's one less thing I have to worry about. All I have to do now is wash all my stuff, pack all my stuff, organize my stuff and pack my stuff that I'm gonna need for my traditional stuff. Obviously now it's just I show up, I go to my 1 week in a month, and that's gonna be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it's obviously not much I'm gonna have to carry now, but I have to carry certain things because I have to still do my wall locker the way that California wants it. The wall locker in California is slightly different than the one in Alabama, because the wall lockers over here are, I guess, in California we have individual beds with the wall locker. In Alabama there were bunk beds with the wall lockers along the walls. So it just depends, obviously, because in the state of California we don't get that many candidates, so obviously we get single beds, so it's kind of a good thing. When I was in Alabama, I had a top bunk. I don't really like the top bunk, especially because I'm getting older, and then waking up early, it kind of hurts my feet just jumping out of bed. So being on the bottom bunk is always a good thing, at least for me. If you like the top bunk, by all means. But other than that, that's pretty much it, guys. Like I said, this is pretty much it that you're gonna have to be reading, memorizing, and it's just like this. And also your first, what they call the first four, is also in there. Be mindful, you're always gonna have to utilize that for the most part, which goes if you're speaking to an officer. And this is a big thing that's very difficult for me because I'm used to calling everybody sir or ma'am. I don't care what it was. I'm not used to calling people by their ranks. If they're an officer, you call them sir or ma'am. Officer candidate, for me it's Officer Candidate Salinas, and then you go on with whatever you need to do. If it's a sergeant, most of the time it'll be sergeant. But if it's like, a sergeant first class, you're gonna have to go sergeant first class, officer candidate, Salinas, blah, 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 blah. So it's just, things like that. You have to kind of look at, the person's rank, which is something that I'm not used to when going through the Sheriff's Academy. Like I said, a lot of these boot camps that I've been through have been, I wouldn't say easy, but it hasn't been as difficult or nearly as challenging as the one I went through with San Bernardino County Sheriffs. I still thank them for everything that I've gone through with them, because when I graduated with their boot camp or their academy, they taught me a lot. They taught me the discipline. They taught me how to literally think before you speak, and then obviously they taught me the sir, ma'am there. And then that made it harder because here in OCS, Officer Candidate, they want you to look at people in their eyes directly, so you're looking at them. That's also another thing I had to adjust, because pretty much every boot camp that I've ever been through, I've never had to look, nor could I look into somebody's eyes or their face, because I would be getting chewed out saying, why am I eyeballing someone? So I had to literally go, sir, ma'am, and I would have to say whatever I had to say. And if they're looking directly in front of me, you literally had to learn how to make your eyes look past them. Your eyes are, it's different. It's a different environment, different experience. And so the only thing they always, got me with was, what are you looking at? And I'm like, oh, sorry. So I had to look down because I'm making sure that I'm not looking at them. I had to make sure I'm looking directly at them. And after like the second day, I was already used to it because we had to do it so repetitive. Same thing, you know, you salute the officers, you don't salute NCOs. Another thing for me, obviously the first four is very difficult because it feels weird, like you're going, sir, Officer Kenny Salinas, and then you either have to say reports with a question or reports with, you know, a statement, or sometimes you gotta go, sir, Officer Kenny Salinas, this. So it's kind of like you're butchering something because you have to go from there, and then you have to really slow down because if you go fast, like I said, this is where a lot of my discipline came from. Like I said, I still thank San Bernardino County Sheriffs because you say it, think before you speak, because a lot of people go, sir, Officer Kenny Salinas, blah, 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 and then you know you're butchering your words because now you're like literally trying to kind of catch up with everything, but you have to put a pause in there. Sir, Officer Kenny Salinas, reports with the statement. Or, you know, the big thing was the dining facility. You know, before we got released, after we got done with our push-ups, if we would talk to an officer, it'll be, sir, ma'am, officer, you'll be saluting, sir, ma'am, Officer Kenny Salinas. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, sir, ma'am. And then they'll salute you. Once they drop the salute, you drop it, and then you're on your way. Same thing with the sergeant. You look at them directly. Sergeant, Officer Kenny Salinas. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Sergeant. They'll acknowledge you and let you go. And then after that, you know, you're fine. This is where I meant from my last video. Your cadre will start noticing things because yes, I still use it to the best of my ability when it comes to the first four, sir, ma'am, Officer Kenny Salinas. I use it to the best of my abilities, but once your cadre knows that you're fairly squared away, there'd be times like for me, I'm not gonna lie about it. For me, I would sometimes forget about it because a lot of times we're having a conversation, and it is very difficult to continue a conversation where they're asking you a question or they're responding with something and they want you to respond, and now you got to continue going, sir, ma'am, sergeant, Officer Kenny Salinas, blah 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 blah. And sometimes they'll be okay with you no longer have to say it, or sometimes I will honestly forget about it, but the cadre would not get on me because, you know, we were just having a normal conversation. But if you were not squared away, I know that, you know, you would be getting chewed out. Like I said, obviously, I know some of my buddies that were prior military, you have that, you know, you're like squared away, you kind of start forgetting about the sir, ma'am. So just be mindful about that. It doesn't happen all the time. There's a few times that, you know, I would get chewed out, but at the same time, I would catch myself because I'll be like, oh, and then I would go back and say it. So they wouldn't really chew me out because of that. So just be mindful about it. You know, it's like a double-sided sword. You know, but other than that, guys, you know, learn your OCSOP. You will be reading it. You'll be learning it while you're waiting in formation. While you're waiting in line for your food. Make sure you're always opening it up. A lot of times you probably won't be studying it because you'll be tired. But try not to get caught talking because sometimes you can get chewed out. If you're talking about your OCSOP, sometimes you may get chewed out for it, but a lot of times you won't because you're at least talking to your battle buddy about the OCSOP. I got caught once talking, but it was the first sergeant. He knew it was about my OCSOP, and he just asked what we were talking about. And obviously, I explained to him, this is what we're talking about, and he just walked away. As long as you're not lying about it, you're going to be fine. My OCSOP was open. Obviously, I always had it mainly like this with my finger in between, and that was pretty much it, you know. But other than that, guys, just learn your OCSOP, learn your state one, obviously, if you have a pre-OCS, and then once you go to whatever OCS, such as Alabama, South Dakota, another one, they're going to give you a different one. Try to memorize that to the best of your abilities. The more you know, the easier it fairly, it pretty much gets, because you're not getting questioned about it. So I wish you guys the best of luck. If you guys have any questions about the OCSOP or anything about any other learning material, anything else that you guys need to know about OCS or the process, drop your comment. I'd like to hear from you guys. There's not that many videos on this stuff. And once again, I am going through the state OCS process. Way different than federal OCS. I sometimes encourage federal OCS, or if you want, go through like the ROTC. Those are always going to be fairly easier than OCS. Going through OCS, if I meet somebody, obviously I will give you that respect, because you know what we are going through. I know what you went through. It's a different ball game than going through the ROTC program or going through federal OCS. Once again, I can't really speak for it though, but going through this OCS process, obviously I can speak for this. But I wish you guys the best of luck, guys. Make sure you guys are always challenging yourself to do better and get better. All right, guys. So until next time.